Okay, let's dive into one of the most astonishing unsolved mysteries in human history. Seriously, this is an ancient cold case that has baffled experts for over 2.5 millennia. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're not just looking at your standard military defeat. No, we're investigating a disappearance so complete and honestly so massive that it challenges our very understanding of history. We're talking about the Lost Army of Cambyses.
50,000. I mean, just pause and imagine an army of that massive size. We're talking about a force marching under the banners of the world's most powerful empire at the time, only to just vanish into the Egyptian desert. Not a single survivor ever returned. No official report back to Persia, not a single captive. Just a vast, terrifying silence. How in the world does a force of that magnitude simply get swallowed by the earth? Let's jump right into Section 1, Vanished into Thin Air.
So, the year is 525 BCE. King Cambyses II, who was the incredibly ambitious son of Cyrus the Great, has just successfully conquered Egypt. He has literally toppled the mighty pharaohs. But, well, there was a problem. Deep in the desert at the Siwa Oasis, the priests at the famous Oracle of Amun just flat out refused to recognize his rule. And for a Persian king, that kind of defiance was completely unacceptable. So his grand solution? He sent a massive force of 50,000 men straight into the desert to destroy their temple and punish anyone who dared to challenge Persian authority. Now, according to the ancient historian Herodotus, the army reached a halfway oasis, took a rest, and then marched right back out into the dunes. And then, out of nowhere, a massive, unstoppable sandstorm struck. Herodotus tells us the wind intensified, the sky filled with sand, and visibility just vanished. Men lost contact with one another, literally struggling to breathe as the storm buried them alive. When the winds finally died down, the army was gone. All 50,000 soldiers, swallowed whole, leaving no battlefield and absolutely no mass graves behind. It's a legendary story, right? But it definitely forces us to ask a critical question. Was Herodotus, a guy often called the father of history, actually telling the truth here? Or are we looking at an ancient cover-up? Did a sandstorm truly wipe out that many men in a single afternoon? Or did something entirely different destroy the Persians? Which brings us to Section 2, into the deadly sands. You have to remember, these soldiers were marching into the western desert of Egypt. This is a deadly sea of sand covering hundreds of thousands of square kilometers. And they were doing this without satellites, no digital maps, and definitely no modern survival gear. Daytime temperatures easily exceeded 45 degrees Celsius. That heat caused the air to shimmer, creating these crazy optical mirages that tricked the mind into seeing lakes where there was literally only dust. Plus, there was zero natural landmarks to guide them. And at night, the temperatures plummeted, bringing a freezing, supernatural silence. For 50,000 men, the risks of just being in this environment were completely astronomical.
Let's move on to Section 3, Fact or Ancient Fiction.
So a really crucial point here is understanding this concept of historical exaggeration. Researchers today actually believe Herodotus might have drastically inflated the army's size just for dramatic effect. I mean, maybe it wasn't 50,000 men, or perhaps only a fraction of the force actually disappeared, and the legend just kind of grew out of control over the centuries. When you really stop and look at the sheer logistics of moving that many people through a completely barren wasteland, the numbers just start to look highly suspicious to modern historians. Let's explore that a bit more in Section 4, What Really Happened. So let's contrast the two main camps of thought here. On one side, we have the legendary single disaster theory, that cinematic sandstorm burying the army instantly. But on the other side is what modern historians actually favor, the chain of disasters theory. Because let's face it, history is rarely that simple. Great catastrophes usually result from multiple compounding failures. We're talking about a slow, agonizing collapse rather than one magical gust of wind. Let's actually walk through how this chain of disasters likely played out. Step 1. Navigation fails. The commanders get totally disoriented in these featureless, shifting dunes. Step 2. Because they're lost, their critical water supplies run dry. So now you have thousands of soldiers wandering around, dehydrated, exhausted, and basically losing their minds to the heat. And then Step 3. Local Egyptian rebels, who know this terrain perfectly, ambush the weakened troops. Think about it. An army on the brink of starvation and dehydration is incredibly vulnerable to a catastrophic attack by local resistance fighters. If there were barely any survivors of this ambush, the true story could easily get distorted back in Persia, eventually morphing into that myth of a magical sandstorm. Moving right along to Section 5, Modern Searches and False Hope. Fast forward to the 21st century, and they actually found things. We saw these super exciting headlines announcing the discovery of human bones in incredibly remote areas, right alongside bronze weapons, ancient arrowheads, and fragments of Persian-era equipment. Documentaries were filmed, and history enthusiasts around the world totally celebrated. It sparked this intense, incredible hope that after 2,500 years, the mystery was finally, definitively solved.
But hold on, does finding ancient artifacts definitively solve the mystery? Well, archaeology demands absolute proof. You have to realize the Egyptian desert is essentially this massive ancient highway. It contains traces of countless merchants, wandering nomads, and a whole bunch of other armies traversing the exact same routes over thousands of years. So finding some old weapons or bones isn't conclusive proof that they belonged to Cambyses' specific legion. It's a fantastic clue for sure, but it's not exactly the smoking gun.
To try and find that smoking gun, investigators today are armed with some truly incredible technology. Satellites allow scientists to scan vast, remote areas from space with unbelievable precision. Then you've got ground-penetrating radar, which literally lets them peer beneath the sand to find hidden, buried structures, or even mass graves. And digital mapping reveals ancient, forgotten pathways that Herodotus couldn't have ever imagined. These tools are completely changing how we hunt for this lost army.
But, despite all this highly advanced tech, the desert is a remarkably formidable opponent. The shifting dunes constantly reshape the landscape. The winds can move entire mountains of sand over the centuries, burying campsites, hiding the truth, and fiercely protecting a 2,500-year-old secret. Literally, what is perfectly visible to a satellite today might completely vanish by tomorrow morning.
Ultimately, this whole explainer highlights a profoundly humbling takeaway. Cambyses commanded one of the greatest empires on Earth. He had unimaginable wealth and power, but nature's supremacy is absolute. The desert does not care about kings, it does not care about human ambition, and it certainly doesn't care about armies. It treats everyone equally, consuming them in total silence.
The Lost Army remains a classic story of overconfidence and an enduring historical enigma. So I want to leave you with this provocative thought. If an entire army of 50,000 men can just vanish without a trace beneath the shifting dunes, what other massive ancient secrets are still lying beneath the sands of Egypt, just waiting for the wind to shift?